Hey everyone, this is pt.1 and welcome to this series of video that I've decided to call RPG Marathon. So this is part 1 out of 3. My idea is that playing a series of RPGs on my PSP, one after the other, of course making videos, so nothing new about it, but the idea is just playing exclusively these 3 RPGs before changing genre and playing something else, because what triggered me to do this is that, as I mentioned before, I have to buy a new PSP because my original one was broken, and after I received, finally, after a lot of struggle that I mentioned in a previous video, mainly because wrong delivery of pink PSP that I didn't want, I decided, what should I play now that I have my PSP? Because it's a console that I absolutely adore. Because, of course, being an RPG player, I love the PSP. So, looking at my collection, the answer was right in front of my eyes, and it was super obvious. I have to play Lunar. Because, thanks to a good friend of mine, he gave me Lunar, Silver Star Harmony, for Christmas, and I haven't played it yet. Was simply waiting. I was playing something else at the time and afterwards, so I decided I waited enough. This is a game that I wanted to play since 15 years or something like that, I don't even know, and it's time that I play at least the first Lunar game. So, RPG Marathon Part 1 starts with Lunar Silver Star Harmony. That, as we know, it's published in 2009, I think, or something, by Xseed, our beloved Xseed. Which this is a remake of the original Lunar game. There is this game has been remade a lot of times. I think it's more recent than this, the iOS version, Lunar Silver Star Touch, but all these games I think are remakes of the original one. It's not the original, I know that, but of the previous remake, which it's probably the version that most people played, which is the PS1 version, Lunar Silver Star Story, complete, published by Working Design on those gorgeous, wonderful boxes. On the PlayStation 1. I'm not sure, I admit, I don't remember if the game was released also on the Sega Saturn. I completely don't know. But the original first Lunar game was published, still by Working Design, I think, on the Sega CD. But at the end of the day, what it matters is that this game, just like the entire Lunar saga, was developed by Game Arts, a company that I always loved because they're the creators of Grandia, of course. I grew up playing Grandia rather than Lunar for the simple reason that Lunar was never released in Europe. Technically, this is not a European game, even the PSP version, but our beloved, again, PSP, it's region free, so I can actually play Lunar. And this was the first time I experienced a Lunar game. And because, as I said, PS1 version was never released. I have no idea if the game was published also on the Sega Saturn. I have no idea if the Sega CD game was released in Europe, but I highly doubt it. So Lunar, it's one of the series that haunted me the most since my childhood, in a way, since the PlayStation 1 days. I've heard of this game since it was released, since it was published for the first time in the West, by reading on magazines, all the enthusiasm regarding this wonderful adventure, and at the same time, of course, being a European gamer, and I just want to stress, after our usual siren, want to stress that it's even noisier. Want to stress that being a European RPG players during the 90s, especially during the entire decade, it was very hard because during the Super Nintendo days, we basically had nothing in terms of RPG. During the PlayStation 1 day, we had more, but not as much as North America, we started to being on the same publishing level during the PlayStation 2 days, although there are still some PlayStation 2 games that we don't have. And finally, nowadays, it's very rare that a game is not released in Europe, so in terms of RPGs. But back then, it was very hard. Like, I didn't play Xenogears because of that, and others. So Lunar is no exception to this. I knew about this game. I wanted to play this game, but I couldn't, of course. Also because during my days, in my PlayStation 1 days, but still now, I never been into like ROMs, emulators, those kind of things. Like the same guy who gave me the PSP Lunar once showed me on YouTube a video about Xenogears, and with the sort of challenging tone said to me, "Oh, I bet you don't even know what this game is." I was excuse me, I know what Xenogears is. I can look just after 1 second and I know that Xenogears. Oh, how do you know that? I mean, I know my games, sir, but I never played it. He looked at me like, what do you mean? I mean, well, the game was never released in Europe, as you know. Yes, but I emulated it. I know you can do that, but I've never been into that sort of things. So, bottom line, being an RPG player in those days sucked. That's my 2 cents on that. But let's get back to Lunar. As I said, this game haunted me, and I've always wanted to play this series, and I finally got the chance with Silver Star Harmony on the PSP. Just now, because it's not an early release, it's not a late release on the PSP, it's pretty old. But better now than never. That's my philosophy with this sort of games. And this is a game that if I would have played back then, I wouldn't be fanatical about it. I loved it, of course. But there are certain things that, even though I loved it, I don't want to be misunderstood here, because it's a fantastic story. You can tell that this has all the elements, the game arts element, we can say this, that I really love since the day I played Grandia. And it's not a coincidence that Grandia, it's my game arts games instead of Lunar for other people. Like Grandia was such a experience for me that every time I imagine these sort of games, as I will explain later with the story and characters and everything, I always call this game has a sort of Grandia effect. And probably this is a Lunar effect, because Lunar was published before Grandia, it's older. But since I haven't played Lunar, instead I play Grandia 1. With the Grandia effect, I already explained during my Legend of Heroes video. It's what I mean with that. It's that it's a game that at the beginning has a wonderful innocence. It's very innocent in terms of story, characters, but progressively the game gets darker and more serious. Darker, not as like, I don't know, a Shin Megami Tensei game, of course not, but the story is much more serious. There are important things at stake, like from the fate of the world, the fate of loved ones, all of this great stuff that progressively makes the game very different from how it started. Like, as I said, Grandia, it's just 2 kids, Justin and Sue, who want to live great adventures. The same thing in Lunar. You have these 2 kids, Alex and Luna. Mainly Alex, we say. You have this kid, Alex, who wants to be a great hero, wants to live great adventures. And mainly his friend, he involves his childhood friend Luna in his journey, and all the great story started from that moment. It's classic game arts, I think, and it's nothing special in the realms of RPGs in general, but it's something that I always attribute to game arts, because it's typical of their games. Not all the games, but especially with Lunar, Silver Star, and Grandia. They're basically the same thing in terms of general story and progression of the story. But if you look at games like Grandia 2, and I suppose Lunar 2, but I haven't played it, but let's look just at Grandia 2 since I own and played it. They're completely different, but we're not talking about Grandia 2. Just want to kind of show you my setting around this Game Arts game and why I love them so much, because I love this kind of innocent story at the beginning that progressively get more serious. It's something that I absolutely love. And let's move on into the story of Lunar, but I basically already tell you that it's this kid Alex who wants to become a great hero, start this great adventure with his childhood friend Luna, and progressively, and during this adventure, you meet other characters. There is Nash, there is Kyle, there is Jessica, there is Mia, who form the main party together with Alex, and this party travels the world in looking for the dragons, so that Alex can realize his dream of becoming the next Dragon Master, the great hero of the world, the service of the goddess Athena. And this is just a general story, not going further into it, also because probably most of you already played the game. I was the only idiot who couldn't or who hadn't played it yet. So the general story is, as I was telling before, it's a very simple story. It's a wonderful story, however, about love and friendship. To me, these were the main themes of Lunar. Love in particular. There's all these couples among the parties. There's Alex and Luna is often considered one of the classic love story in video games in general. But also you can see like Kyle and Jessica, Mia and Nash. They're all this couple because there is the power of love. It's one of the main forces in the Lunar storyline, which is always good stuff. I mean, I don't mind it. I'm man enough to say I don't mind a good love story in a video game. Granted, this is not the best love story in a game that I saw. I mean, Alex and Luna, it's a wonderful copy, but I saw better than this, even though I absolutely love the story between them. So you have a great story. I heard some general complaints about this specific version, and it's all things that I really don't care. I heard, for example, the load time. Sometimes people say that are quite annoying. I didn't think so. It was okay. I've started trying to think other PSP games with slow load times. I don't know. I really don't know. I can remember, but it didn't bother me, so it was okay probably. I have no idea about translation and things like that. Just saying because people always say, "Oh, this version has a better translation." People complain about the intro song. I mean, we complain a lot. I mean, what's wrong with you guys? This is a wonderful game. Who cares if the lyrics are different from the PlayStation 1 to the PSP version? We don't know Japanese, most of us at least. Who cares if the lyrics are different? Look at how gorgeous that song is, because one of the things that was probably revolutionary at the time, of course, are the anime cutscenes. And it's something that still this day, I think, it holds really good, I think. I'm a really simple-minded guy, and so to me, this is great stuff. It looked gorgeous, and of course, like, people looking at a game like this were like, the fuck is this shit? I mean, it's really old style. The anime cutscenes, the graphics of the game, they're really simple, I think, by today's standard. It's a PSP game, it's not a PS4 game, but otherwise I don't care about that. It looks gorgeous to me, so that's important stuff, in my opinion. But as I said, I don't mind simple, old school, old looking graphics. So, but the anime cutscenes are really impressive, and they must have been unbelievable at the time. I don't know if on the Sega CD they were at the same quality, because if they were, this was incredible back then. But still, for PS1 standard, if the quality of the cutscenes were the same, my god, that's unbelievable. They're still really good looking on the PSP. Although you can see they're a bit dated, but that's beyond the point. The graphics of the game, like gameplay graphics, are gorgeous. I loved it, absolutely gorgeous. And the gameplay is also very straightforward. I mean, turn-based with a bit of strategy, I think. In the deployment of your party, you can change the position of the characters, but at the end, it's still not really turn-based in a way. It's more strategy. It reminds me in a way of a Legend of Heroes games in terms of combat. It's not always your turn. Sometimes it can be one. It's possible that once one of your party member will act, and then it follows by all the enemies, and then the rest of your party moves. So it's kind of random. Most of the time, especially towards the end, was always like, I don't know, Alex did his things, then all the enemies attacked me, and then the rest of the party followed. So it was pretty random, but still not really turn-based, a la like a Final Fantasy VI kind of game. It's more like, as I said, a Legend of Heroes, but more random. Not like there isn't like a bar with the whose turn is, like tracing the sky. That would be really useful, actually. So that's combat mainly. I mean, speaking of combat, I have to say, I didn't find this game challenging at all. I had one game over, I think, only once. For the rest, I never died in this game. And that's not a complaint at all. I don't mind easy games, or at least not too challenging games here and there. And also because, like, it took me no more than 27 hours to beat Lunar, so it wasn't even that long, and that's fine. Again, these are not complaints, these are not problems that I had with the game. It's just details I remembered. I mean, it's not that I need really hard games or every time I need to play an 80 plus hours RPG. Not at all. I love some easy, shorter games. I was expecting Lunar to be a bit longer, at least 30 hours. Well, it was almost 30 hours, maybe. But it didn't bother me. It was exactly what I needed when I played it. Music was very good. I was trying to remember what I should talk about it, because the main focus of this video, at least what I really want to talk about, is my personal story with Lunar. But let's finish the main stuff. The music, it's really good, although other than certain scores, it never really struck me as wow. I mean, it was good music, but it's not like the JDK level. Although the score and the opening were really good, actually. I love the overall theme. That was really good. And like the opening was just, I had like goosebumps when I watched that opening for the first time. But that was also because of the emotion, the personal emotion that I was playing Lunar. I cannot stress that enough, how big this was for me, because this is a game that haunted me for more than a decade, and finally I've played and beat it. So I was top of the world when I finished this game. So this is basically what you need to know about Lunar game. And as I said, it's a game that I loved. I really like this game. And maybe I don't sound too enthusiastic about it, like, oh yes, I finished Lunar, oh my god, it was so great. But it's simply because I'm very calm as a person, so it's really difficult for me to get all excited. But also because I think, even though let me rephrase this, I think this is a timeless adventure in terms of the story and the characters. It's a really good story, simple but really good, and that's always a good combination. You don't need really intricate story to make a good game. You need some time, something simple like Lunar. It's just a wonderful story about love and friendship. Fantastic. And it's a great game. And I really want to play Lunar 2 Eternal Blue. That's like more than anything. That's really the game I want to play. But I cannot do it, of course, because I'm super disappointed with both Exceed, Game Arts, or any other company there, that Eternal Blue was never remade. I mean, why did we have Silver Star Harmony and not Eternal Blue on the PSP as well? Or on the Vita? I mean, just do that. What's stopping you? Probably, I don't know, maybe it was just a matter of sales. Maybe this didn't sold like 10 million copies, but you know that these are RPGs. These things don't sell well anymore, like once. And I would love to play Eternal Blue on the Vita, for example. Just put it on the PSN Game Arts. Who's stopping you? It really bothered me when I read on, I think it was Exceed's website, or maybe it was Game Arts website itself, someone like a very important, I don't know, it was the CEO or something like that of Game Arts saying, well, for now there are no chances to get Lunar 2, but it's up to the fans. And I was like, what? So it's up to us, and it's because of us that we don't have Eternal Blue? That's absolute bullshit. Because I think that all the fans of Lunar and RPGs fans in general will buy the game instantly. I will do it. The only thing for me, I'm forced to buy the very, very expensive PS1 version. I want to do it anyways because I really want those gorgeous boxes by Working Design, and that's the only way I can play Eternal Blue, by the way. And as I said, I really want to play that. Also because I heard from certain other YouTubers like Dustin Cries and others that Eternal Blue might even be better than Silver Star. And if that's true, oh, I cannot wait to play that sooner or later. But to finish on Silver Star, as I said, I love this game, but I'm not too enthusiastic because I think I played it a bit out of its time, even though I consider this story timeless. Because this game was released in the 90s, and I've played now in 2015. And especially because I know that if I would have played this on PlayStation 1 back then, I would have been fanatical about Lunar. I love it already. I'm just saying now it's not my favorite game of all time or among my top 10 games of all time. Unfortunately not, because I play, I think, better RPGs, overall RPGs than this, even though it's a really good game. Don't misunderstand me. And Luna, Alex, Nile, and these characters will be with me forever. I mean, they're great characters with a really good story. But I think I kinda, at least for me, maybe it's just personal, it's like playing Chrono Trigger now. It's, I don't know, maybe it's kind of too simple for nowadays. Even, I don't know how to explain. It's weird. I don't want to be misunderstood because I really like this, but at the same time, I almost feel like I didn't enjoy it as much as I should, and that's wrong to say it because I really enjoyed it. It's weird. I just stopped here because probably I'm not making any sense. But you know, in a nutshell, I really liked it. Although I think back then I would enjoy it much more, even though I really liked it. Okay, if everything, like, let's move on from this nonsense I was talking about. So, with all my complaints about Eternal Blue not be re-released, especially compared with all the really numerous occasions that Silver Star was released, like, as I said, on PS1, maybe Saturn, who knows, PSP, there are some, isn't it Game Boy Advance sort of remake, even though it's different, I don't remember. And I'm not talking about Dragon Song, because that's, I think it's on the DS, and most people agree that it's horrible. And so Lunar, it's definitely a series that I've wanted to play since I was a little boy, since the PlayStation 1 days. I couldn't because of publishing and my own limitation as a video gamer in a way. I mean, because I never been interested in ROMs and emulator, I kind of limited my experience, especially with RPGs back then. We'll see. I really want to buy the PlayStation 1 editions. Of course, they're really expensive, so it's not something I will do immediately. But at the end of the day, I really, really want to play Eternal Blue now. And of course, Lunar now, even though with all that weird talking about Enjoy Now, not as much as I should have. This is a great series. I absolutely love it. But I need to play the sequel, of course. I need to complete the story. And naturally, I needed to add that it would be fantastic to have a third Lunar now. As I said, I haven't played the sequel. I haven't played the second part of the story. But again, so I'm not sure if the stories are connected. I think so, for what I heard. But you don't need to do this for a third game. I mean, you can just tell a different story in the world of Lunar, or I don't know, do a prequel maybe, like, I don't know, the story of the first Dragon Master or something like that. I don't know, but just don't abandon this great series, gamers. This is what I want to say. Both Lunar and Grandia, because I think they're working on, or they already did, I don't remember, a Grandia Online that I really don't know why they did that. Just continue these stories. Make a new Grandia. Make a new Lunar. There is all the discussion I read on Facebook about the possibility of a Grandia 2 HD remake, but I think that will be on Steam. And make it on consoles. I mean, what's the big deal? Come on, make it on the 3DS. Make it on the Vita. I understand if you don't want to make it on PS4, but at least 3DS or Vita, they're, especially 3DS, popular enough to justify an RPG. But we'll see. Anyways, guys, I think that's all I can say at the moment about Lunar. A game that I really liked, but I think that back then I would have liked so much more, even though I loved it. I cannot escape this weird thinking of mine. Even I cannot repeat it enough. I loved it. That's it. A classic, a great classic that haunted me for at least 15 years. I finally managed to play it and beat it. If you haven't played it, like in my case, for forces beyond our possibilities, like the game was never released in Europe again. This is a good occasion to play it, although of course it's quite expensive. As you can see, I don't own the special edition. I'm lucky enough to have this, thanks to my good friend Paolo, who gave this for Christmas. And this is also a problem with the Lunar games. They're really expensive. I think the only one that is accessible to most people is the iOS version, although the Silver Star Touch, although I heard the controllers suck. Although I don't know if there are patches or stuff like that to improve the controllers, the touchpad. But I think this is probably the most I would probably suggest this to people who haven't. Whoa, sorry about that. To people who haven't tried the series yet, try to get the PSP version, because yes, it's kind of expensive, but not as much as the Sega CD or PS1 version. So if you really liked it, then maybe you can go after the more expensive ones. Silver Star Story Complete, and especially, as I will do, Eternal Blue, because that's the only way to play that I can play that. So that's it, guys, for Lunar, and this is the end of RPG Marathon Part 1. Tune in next time for Part 2. Already started yesterday, next game, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'll just keep in suspense. Just stop talking now. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, guys. Take care.